So I go by the alias of Culture Shocka, and I'm a Oahu-based artist. The echo throughout this slideshow is the place I live in. Living in Hawaii, I use iconography, stuff like the island chains, to make visual puns. In this case, an art palette, or in this case, handcuffs. Anytime I do this, the goal is to try and make commentary on socio-political issues, things that I see happening in the news. This, for example, could be a commentary on prison population numbers, disproportionate Hawaiians in prison. This, for example, could be a commentary on mothers or being born and raised here. I think this graphic actually ended up being used for a Nahua Ea event cover for its program. But yeah, the reoccurring ideas in this case, surfboards for crowns or ukulele for crowns. And yeah, the repetition of local or Hawaiian elements hopefully creates metaphors that allow the viewer to kind of stop, pause, and think, and see multiple message or see multiple interpretations. And sometimes I play with images that are a little bit more fun, a little less serious. Something like wine and waves or beer in barrels can be really harmless. Something like a Pauhana event, and then other times where I use something like a canoe could be service commentary on navigation, or how navigators may feel that the tradition, the history of the lessons they've learned can be passed down through a bloodline or oral history, carrying on a tradition. That's symbolism that a torch could take on. I can play with images of flags, on one hand creating the natural tree versus the man-made crane, speaking on growth versus development, and then it becomes politicized by combining it with the flag and its associated colors. In this case, I'm playing off of an old Pac-Man video game screenshot. The dolphin is trying to navigate plastic pollution through the ocean. The bulldozer, meanwhile, is eating up valuable farmlands that you find out in Ho'opili. Both of these try and build off images that people have seen, that it's in the pop culture or in the public consciousness. This, for example, could be kalo helping your heart if you eat it, or taro being, the lifeline or the bloodline of Hawaiian people. I can also tackle food issues, but with a little more humor, incorporating something as modern as an iPhone for spam can create multiple interpretations, but this happens to be the cover art for a music project that I worked on. Equally, with something like a shaka and a pencil, you could serve as commentary for the state of education, or educating, Hawaiian kids, or educating local kids. What I really want to be careful of with my imagery, though, is even though I'm a settler, even though I'm born and raised here, I still recognize that I'm a settler, that I'm half white, half Japanese, and that therefore when I tackle something like a flag, nation in distress, rebel music type imagery, I want to be sensitive to not co-opt anything, whether it be culture or imagery, seeing as how powerful and how quick these icons are to bring up sometimes painful histories or traumatic stories. For example, the fight currently going on over on Hawaii Island with Mauna Kea. In this case, protesters and / protectors take the form of a chain of people. In this particular one, there's the greedy corporate witch arm coming in, whereas the bigger hands protect the people. And the theme can be continued with the idea of a crown, the yellow people representing the type of flower, I believe, that grows at a certain elevation on Mauna Kea. But the common thread there being exploring, hopefully coming off in a form of solidarity, exploring the idea of not just old issues, things like development, hence the crane in the form of a shadow, but also contemporary issues around development or the tourism industry, and questioning who's benefiting from these and who really stands to gain. Some of the messages or some of the imagery I make sometimes hits people a little too hard over the head and doesn't leave much room for subtlety or neutrality. With this particular image, I'm not pulling any punches as far as painting certain folks out as the bad guy or the evil money man. But the reoccurring, pinstripe corporate arm is definitely my way of kind of poking fun at the powers that be and the way that they divvy up land or divvy up money. And as a result of all of that, I recognize that a lot of healing needs to take place. So when I use something like a Band-Aid, although it can be a little bit jarring, the idea of bloodshed on the land, or the idea of spilling blood for future causes, or questioning who are we fighting for, comes up. And then to end it on a slightly lighter note, the idea of combining diamond head as the fin of a fish, or leahi by the Hawaiian name, can explore the idea of the relationship between life and land and the natural world. Thanks for listening.